So apparently, I can't go run normal real life errands without the internet absolutely losing its mind. Noted. Hey guys, this is Jules with True Crime Reactions. I have been in town for like a couple of hours. Not even a couple, more than that. Probably like 4 hours at this point. All I knew is that I kept getting emails and comments claiming that there were these articles going around trying to state that Bryan Kohberger's actual blood was found at the crime scene. And I didn't know what that was about. Now, I get on YouTube and the very first thing I see is Harsh Reality's video. I love Harsh. He's my broski from, over yonder, but I didn't watch the whole video because I wanted to look at it myself. Okay, so I clicked on the link. He had it in his description box, so shout out to him for actually having it in there. I'm going to go over this with you. But I know that it wasn't very long ago that not only did we get what we thought was verification from the defense about it being Othram Labs involved in the situation, but that we also got validation that this was something as ridiculously explain awayable as touch or trace DNA. And from the small details that we have been getting about the amount of DNA, it was extremely minute. Nanoparticles. Barely enough, and not enough in my personal opinion, to have done all of the testing that they're claiming that they did. This whole thing about it being blood all of a sudden legit doesn't make any sense to me. DNA is DNA, all right? But there is an entirely huge difference between blood DNA, actual physical blood being found, and the DNA that they used to find the suspect coming from that actual blood sample, and something as easily explained away as touch or trace DNA. And I've given this example a million times. You could be at Walmart going down the cereal aisle, picking up boxes of cereal, looking at the ingredients on the back, just, doing your normal shopping, picking things up, taking a look at it, putting it back. Someone else can come behind you, pick up that exact same box of cereal. That person, if they touch the right spots, in the same spots that you touched, can then take your little epithelials and take them with them. And if they decide to commit a crime in the next 6 to 12 hours, or whenever they decide to wash their hands, or at any point in between, it is a short time frame. I will give you that. If it is coming from person to person, with as much as people touch on things and wash their hands and bathe and all that, it is a very short time frame where you could validate someone else's DNA being transferred by actually someone else, if that makes any sense. But if you go and touch something and then someone comes behind you and touches that something, they can then take the traces of you that you left behind with them. And if they go and commit a crime, they could not only be leaving possibly their DNA behind, but also yours. And sometimes not even leaving their own DNA behind. Sometimes just leaving your DNA behind. And there's actually been quite a few stories, quite a few cases where people have gone to prison, even been put on death row because of faulty DNA evidence. Their DNA was found at the crime scene. There's even one where a man's DNA was found under the guy's fingernails, and he was convicted of unaliving him. And it turns out he was completely innocent. Completely innocent. And it took them years to figure that out. And that's years that this man had his life just wasted, sitting in a prison cell being treated like he was actually someone who was so cold and heartless that they could stop another person's breathing and stop their heartbeat and stop their life journey with no remorse, when he was completely innocent. Completely innocent. I just heard a story where a guy just got released after being 23 years away, innocent, and put away for 23 years. That's why things like this are so important. It has nothing to do with liking somebody or being a fan of anything. We've seen the injustices. We've seen it. So whenever it comes to something this serious, we want everything, every duck in a row. We want no mistakes. We want none of these issues. We want no misconceptions, no discrepancies, and that should literally just be the standard. Like legit the standard, okay? So, I'll say again, we have been told from the beginning this was like nanoparticle amounts of touch DNA, okay? So this article that we're about to go over, I am putting nothing on it. Nothing. I'm upset at the lack of professionalism in this. And I clicked on this Sean O'Driscoll, and he's like some sort of affiliate based in Ireland. The whole being in Ireland thing is kind of like a catch-22, okay? Because we have people here in the States that cover cases overseas, and we have people overseas that cover cases here in the States. Okay, Harsh being one of the good ones that actually do it some justice whenever he talks about him, because he's level-headed and he doesn't seem to have tunnel vision. But it bothers me that this guy who is in Ireland is now claiming in this article that there was actually blood on the knife sheath. Because if there was not any sort of language barrier or any sort of discrepancies there, we wouldn't be here right now. I wouldn't be needing to make this video to try to clear this chaos up, okay? This might be, and I might sound like a jackass. I honestly don't care. I'm sick and tired of worrying about how the little sensitive people are going to react to common sense when it comes to these kinds of things. If you're coming from overseas to cover a case in the United States, you better have the language right, you better have the dialect down, and you better understand it, because then stuff like this happens. Stuff like this happens. And it's honestly uncalled for. Now we're going to start right here, because not only is the what I believe to be just a misconception and a discrepancy because of a possible language barrier issue, there's also some information about the possible positioning of the two girls. So it claims that Mogen was leaning over Goncalves' shoulder. Now, we've been basically given the visual that Maddie would have been on the outside of the bed, that Kaylee was found more towards the inside of the bed, sort of between Maddie and the wall. And this is stating at this point that Mogen was leaning on Kaylee's shoulder, which would mean to me that Maddie was sort of on top of Kaylee, which is also something that we've heard. We've heard that they were on top of each other. Personally, the way that everything kind of played out in the way that we've been being told things, it seemed to me as if Kaylee would have heard something going on, gotten up and walked out of her own bedroom and walked into Maddie's bedroom and then saw what was happening. So in my mind, I always pictured it to be like Kaylee would have been on top of Maddie. This makes it sound the opposite. Because if Maddie was leaning on Kaylee's shoulder, then that would mean that Kaylee would be under her. So that does give like a different perspective, to me anyway, for how it would have worked. Because if Maddie would have been being attacked and Kaylee was hearing that and Kaylee walked in, it seems as if Kaylee would have been on top. Like it would have happened second, because we've been given Maddie's name as number one since the beginning. So that's another thing that's kind of like bothering me with this article, because it's kind of given me the opposite of everything that we've kind of been given detail-wise. And then he drops down here to this next paragraph claiming Moscow police officer Brett Payne noticed a tan leather knife sheath with a drop of red stuff, okay, stupid YouTube, on the button snap. That drop is now central to the case against Bryan Kohberger, who has been charged with all four, which we already know. Officer Payne wrote in a signed statement submitted to the court. You mean in the PCA? See, that's what I'm talking about. This is somebody not from here. And instead of using verbiage that we use here in the States, they're using other things. Because in this paragraph about the knife sheath, it's talking about the Marine Corps insignia being on it and blah, 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 blah. That was in the PCA. the PCA, the probable cause affidavit. So that's just another reason why this is like an issue for me, because the verbiage being used is different than what we use in the States, which means a lot of the verbiage that we use is going to be changed in this. I just don't, this is just one of those chaos pieces, guys. This is just fuel for the dumpster fire, in my opinion. That's all that this is. And they've never once said this. This next paragraph, they've never once said this whatsoever. Cops have never speculated this. And if I'm wrong, I could be. But I don't recall the cops ever once claiming that there was a possibility that whoever did this was slightly injured and dropped the knife sheath in the confusion. When have they ever alluded to us, even one iota, that there was any sort of proof that the assailant themselves had been injured? And I feel like if this was blood DNA actually on the knife, like, snap, wouldn't they by now have been making that pretty clear? If he really knew that they had something that you can't just explain away, good luck trying, because you're going to fail. Why would he be doing so much to try to dismiss this case? That doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. But then again, I'm also not quite understanding why the defense wants the cameras to not be in the courtroom, because you would think with all of the things they're trying to claiming is actually going on in this case, they'd want it all out there in the public and in the open. So the whole camera thing's always bothered me. That's why I am taking everything with a grain of salt, and you guys know that I try to look at both sides, okay? But until a document comes out claiming that it was blood DNA on that snap, I'm going by what we've been told this entire time, that this was touch DNA. Nothing more. And now here it is with the verbiage for this kind of mask, the kind that I can't say here on YouTube because my video will not be pushed out in the algorithm if I say the word for something that we as a society, as a human society on this entire planet actually dealt with altogether. You know, if I mention that word, then YouTube will punish me. So, yes, it has been speculated that it was that type of mask, simply because the only details we actually got about the mask was that it was something that covered the nose and the mouth. But that doesn't mean that it wasn't a ski mask. That doesn't mean that it wasn't a worker's mask. It wasn't a mask that you would wear in the oil field. That it wasn't a million different other kinds that cover the mouth and the nose but leave the eye area open. There's all kinds of different masks, and we've learned that here recently. And I don't understand this part right here, because when they're talking about the CCTV footage that the cops were following, he says that led them to believe it turned onto a ramp that would lead the driver on the road to Pullman in Washington State, another college town 10 minutes down the road. Okay, but that's not even true, because according to the PCA, what they gave us is this white Hyundai Elantra that they're claiming was Bryan Kohberger going south out of Moscow and going like way out the way to get back to Pullman. And the way that this person is putting the verbiage in here, it's as if they got on the ramp to get on the highway, which we know for a fact with what they're claiming wouldn't have been Bryan, because they're claiming Bryan went all in the backwood areas to get back. So what is this stuff about a ramp? That would be highway. That's not what we're being told. What in the hell is this? A search of the CCTV footage from the college in Pullman and a private residence front porch shows a white Elantra showing up about 10 minutes after the suspect Elantra left Moscow. Okay, so they've been telling us in the PCA this entire time that he took like over an hour to get from the crime scene back to Pullman, and that he took this crazy long horseshoe-shaped road. Okay, he went through Blaine and then did this stuff, went up through Johnson, all these things, right? This person is claiming right here that they have footage of the car pulling back up in Pullman from a residence porch camera 10 minutes after the event, 10 minutes after it left. So they're trying to claim that if they're saying that the car left the area at 4:20 in the morning, that at 4:30, that white Hyundai Elantra pulled back up to Bryan's house in Pullman? Is that what this is claiming, guys? Let me reread this. You guys pause to validate. Is that what this is claiming? A search of the CCTV footage from the college in Pullman, so college cameras at WSU, okay, and a private residence's front porch camera is what this is telling us. Okay, well, we also need to keep in mind Bryan Kohberger lived in an apartment complex. So there's that. And this is stating, it shows a white Elantra showing up to Pullman, 10 minutes after the suspect Elantra left Moscow. This is the opposite. This is the opposite of everything that we've been hearing. Everything in this article so far is the opposite of everything that we've been being told. This is like big thing number 3, unless I'm miscalculating. Eventually, a Pullman police officer identified a white Elantra belonging to student Bryan Kohberger, originally from Pennsylvania. From the driveway, the officer could see that the car had no... What driveway, home skillet? This is an apartment complex that Bryan Kohberger lived in. See, this is driving me nuts. Officer Payne ran a computer search, and from Kohberger's driver's license photo could see that he was a slim white male with bushy eyebrows. Okay? And that should have been on 11/29, and from what we're understanding, they didn't do crap about getting all that information on 11/29. This... And now look at this right here. This, again, 180. This is about him leaving to go back to Pennsylvania for break. And we already know that the FBI came out and were claiming they had nothing to do with those Indiana stops because he literally was pulled over twice in like 10 minutes. Literally. This paragraph. Kohberger was placed under covert police and FBI surveillance, and they discovered that he would be traveling back to Pennsylvania in his Elantra. Several teams were instructed to follow him across America and never let him out of their sight. In an incident that is still clouded in mystery, a traffic policeman stopped Kohberger's car and spoke to him briefly. The officer was wearing a body cam, and Officer Payne was quickly able to review the video footage and establish that Kohberger had bushy eyebrows. Okay. Are they seriously trying to claim that the only reason that he got pulled over in Indiana was so they can do an eyebrow check? I'm sorry. Okay. It was important for police to see what he looked like in real life and not simply rely on a driver's license photo. Okay, but didn't you just say that you knew? Because like up here it talks about how they were able to pull that he had been pulled over for speeding right here. Okay, well, there would have been body cam footage on there for you to check his eyebrows. So what? What? Is this satire? Is this like satire for real? I'm questioning what I'm reading here. Because what? We still don't know if this was a genuine police stop or, given the speed with which the body cam footage was recovered, a police ploy to get a closer look at Kohberger. Okay, but you literally just claimed that a bunch of teams were instructed to follow him across America. And then again, we have right here, the knife sheath blood drop came back from DNA analysis, and it was from a male. The police still didn't have Kohberger's DNA to compare to the knife sheath blood drop and didn't want to arouse Kohberger's suspicion, especially as they wanted to see if he would dispose of the knife somewhere in the drive across America. And as far as they could tell, he didn't. And see, that's the part that would actually make sense. Like if they were really following him to see if he would dump something along the way, that would make the most sense to me. But everything, all of the details in this, they're literally all contradictorial of each other. And all contradictorial to everything that we've been told this entire time. Literally everything. And now this is claiming that the DNA that they found in the Pennsylvania trash that they matched to be Bryan's dad's DNA was from a food sample. See, that part they haven't clarified or said anything about yet. We've just been told it was trash. We didn't know if it was like toilet paper or like a spit cup from something in the bathroom, if it was an old toothbrush, food, a cup. Like we hadn't heard any of that. So this again is like another detail that has not come out whatsoever that this person is putting specifications on. This entire article is nothing but a dumpster fire that's going to just create more dumpster fires. I don't know who this guy thinks he is, but this is the reason why the news media has become such a joke. This guy literally just wrote like the worst article I've ever read. It was very poorly written, honestly. I don't know why this guy decided to write an article that was literally a complete 180 of everything that we've been being told about this case. All of it. The DNA that was found, the fact that now they're claiming that the suspect's vehicle left the scene and showed back up in Pullman 10 minutes later, but the PCA, the car they're claiming was Bryan's, the reason why it's in his arrest affidavit is because they're claiming that they were able to track him in this long, way out the way, make no sense journey on the way back home. But in this article, the car that left the scene pulled back up in Pullman 10 minutes later. Well, sweetheart, if that's the case, then it wasn't Bryan. Because Bryan's movements are in the PCA. So who got back to Pullman 10 minutes after the crime happened? Now, we also need to remember, as much as I feel like this article is just someone doing things completely unethically and for some reason with no remorse, because they probably slept just fine after writing this. So we do have to keep in mind that whenever it comes to the Idaho 16, the ICR rules that keep being, put into all these documents, there is a very specific one that mentions a co-defendant. And whenever these rules are being mentioned, it's not like 1,3-8, and I believe that's the numbers. I'm going off memory right now. But it's not 1,3-8, leaving out the one about the co-defendant. It's 1 through 8, meaning the one about the co-defendant is totally a part of that situation. Now, I know that they've claimed that there was over 22,000 Hyundai Elantras, right, in that area. Could it be possible there is more than one person and they just so happen to have the same kind of vehicle, same looking type of vehicle, the same white Hyundai Elantra, but maybe different years? Maybe. But I am not taking any credence into this article because literally everything in it is the opposite of what we've been being told. And I feel like whenever it comes to people that are overseas, there's a dialect barrier, there's a verbiage barrier, even the way that our laws are written and the way that our court systems work, all completely different. So there's a lot of things that can be misconstrued, completely just mistaken, okay? And I feel like that's the case here. Never, not once, have we been told that there was any blood DNA from the assailant. We've been being told from the very beginning that it was touch DNA. They had nanoparticles that were found in the snap of the button sheath. And the little amount that they found has made me question how they've been able to do all of this testing from the beginning. And that has been the story. We've literally heard it mentioned in court. I'm pretty positive we've seen it even in documentation that this is touch DNA. Touch. Again, I don't know what the whole point of this article was. I don't know what this guy's motives was. I don't know why Newsweek didn't do better when it came to them letting this article out into the internet. But I'm not putting anything on this. And that is just my personal opinion. But I do want to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments because let me know. See y'all.